Access for All presents The Long Way Round. This video has been funded by Galway City Council as part of the Local Economic Community Plan, LECP. The plan aims to support local, community and economic development. One goal of the LECP is to create an equal and inclusive city.
The UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, or the UNCRPD, which was adopted by the United Nations in 2006, requires member countries to protect the rights and dignity of disabled people. The UNCRPD divides disabled people's rights into 26 articles, covering all areas of life, from accessibility and health, education and employment, to equal recognition before the law and freedom from exploitation, violence and abuse. We believe that the UNCRPD provides an ideal framework for creating an inclusive and universally accessible city which would benefit all Galway residents. In County Galway, as of the end of 2024, 20% of the population, or nearly 40,000 people, were found to have at least one disability. Disabilities include physical impairments, blindness, deafness, chronic pain and illnesses, autism and intellectual, sensory, psychological, emotional and mental health issues. Disabilities don't discriminate. They affect young and old, women, men and non-binary individuals, and people of all ethnicities and religions. We have created this documentary to raise awareness among local government and the general public about access issues in the city and the need for the full implementation of the UNCRPD. The documentary follows 3 disabled people navigating Galway City as part of their everyday life. They are accompanied by a city councillor who witnesses firsthand the barriers to accessibility they experience.
Galway is a lovely town and everyone wants to live here, including people with disabilities. However, for people with disabilities, I find that Galway in particular presents some challenges. I am trying to open the kissing gate so that I can enter the park. The kissing gate is heavy, and part of that is due to the type of disability that I have. It can also cause me an injury if I don't operate the kissing gate properly.
Well, going around Galway City can be very difficult with many obstacles and broken pavements and broken crossings, and there's a lack of crossings around the city. There is no specific crossing when you get off the bus stop at the cathedral by the Human Rights Centre, whereas the crossing is the other side when you come off the bridge. So maybe it's possibly because it's on a corner, but still it's very difficult for anybody with visual impairment, with a long cane or a guide dog owner.
Stephen from the Galway Deaf Centre walks down a city pavement carrying a gym bag.
There's lots of barriers, I suppose. Even if you go into any kind of shop, I suppose, depending on the distance you're trying to talk to the person behind the counter, that can be difficult. There can be a lot of ambient sound. And if you're in a mixed crowd with deaf and hearing people, I think sometimes I might be able to understand some of the conversation, but not all of the conversation. I kind of get left out. So, but that's kind of my normal now. It's my everyday experience.
People with disabilities are unable to secure employment purely because they can't even get in the door. There has been numerous times where I have secured a job after an interview, and then I was offered a position when I turned up, it was up on a flight of stairs, and a reasonable accommodation, which is just purely getting into the office, couldn't be met.
And Councillor Fahy, I know you spent some time with Aaron going around the city of Galway. What was it like to see someone in a wheelchair struggling to access a public park or a bathroom?
Biggest issues we found was the quality of the footpaths and around the city. And we had a situation where one day we were on Merchants Road and we were trying to come off a footpath, and it was dipped on one side of the road to facilitate a wheelchair, but on the other side there was no way that you could get back up on the footpath across the road.
If a member of the deaf community arrives at City Hall, is there somebody there who can interpret? The answer is probably no, and we need to improve on that. Again, on a practical point that I learned on my day with Stephen, our car parks, our public car parks, if the person who's in the car, maybe it could be Stephen, has to speak to somebody on the end of an intercom, so there's no system in place for him to say the car park barrier is not working or something like that. So,
And yeah, I think it's really important that we have the likes of you, Helen, and the other two councillors and boards to push for our rights and push for getting a full-time access officer. That's what we need, because the person that's currently there, as you say, Rose, does not have enough time to dedicate to fighting for our accessibility rights.
We've tried for years to get a fully involved access officer. Currently, we do have an access officer, but only 10% of their time is spent on access. What can we do to bring about change like that, to get a dedicated access officer, to get a dedicated committee that includes people with disabilities? How can we make those changes happen?
Lobby people like me, councillors. There's 18 of us on the city. I'm one voice.
It's very important for our local representatives to engage with the person with the lived experience, because we are the experts in what is more suitable for us.
There is such a thing as to have a disability inclusion committee that has been acted out in Wicklow County Council. We're wondering if such a committee could be started in Galway. How can we lobby for that?
I think if there's a will there's a way that will work. And I think you have to find, obviously myself, I know a number of my colleagues are involved in this project as well, would be absolutely crucial to that process to lead out and drive a project such as that.
One thing I believe in is you cannot run a program without the people who are involved. So having the inclusion of people living with disability in Galway to be able to discuss and come up with ideas on how to make Galway City accessible, inclusive for them and for everyone.
We appreciate your passion for this, but Access for All has been striving for years to get a dedicated access officer, and it just hasn't happened. What do we need to do? I mean, I understand present a proposal, but we have done that. And I know you're a newly elected member just from last June, I believe. So how do we get heard?
Let's reopen the conversation. If one thing I do is if I get no, I repeat it. I keep doing it until I get a yes. So what I would say to us today is, let us start that conversation.
We need more interpreter provision. Like for example, in educational situations, schools, conferences, any kind of political meetings. I suppose then HSE, hospitals, any kind of medical settings. I suppose as well for deaf workers too. They need access with interpreters if they're having meetings with management or those kind of things.
If there was a road closure and then people end up coming into the city and they haven't heard about it, so, and I suppose now in Galway, I'm thinking nationally as well, I suppose there should be a way of getting information out there using other organisations like Irish Deaf Society or Time or other organisations, maybe getting information out there as well.
I also think that people agree that businesses are a key part to making improvements and for accessibility. And we, at one point in Galway, we had our Galway Gold Star program, which rewarded companies that improve their structures. Is that something that, there's 1 year funding for the program, is that something that could be revived, or what do you think could be used to incentivize businesses?
One very simple practical thing I found, and I've actually spoke to businesses since the day we met, was in restaurants and bars and public spaces in the city, where the TV would be on, the news would be on the background, and many restaurants and bars wouldn't have subtitles on TV. It's just something very simple. But if I go in and I sit down, I can hear the TV, obviously. If Stephen went in, Stephen couldn't have heard what was going on in the news. So I've spoke to many restaurants and bars now and just said, just put on the subtitles. And if somebody from the deaf community come in, it's not creating an awkward situation where you have to go and ask, would you put on the subtitles, or find a way to get that communication in place.
There's other simple things to work with the businesses in relation to the attitude of the staff. And there's a lot of things that businesses can do that will not cost them money. We in Access for All are trying to attend as many of the consultations as possible to inform before the local authority go and do something. They might put a ramp here or a tactile paving there, but oftentimes they're put in the wrong position. And this is where we can come along and give our experience. It's very hard to educate the general public on all of the issues that are there, but I think people need to be more open and more accepting of disabled people and to listen to the person with the lived experience. We want everybody to listen to us and take our hints and tips when we give them with a good heart.
Since filming, a motion proposed by Councillor Helen Ogbu has been passed at a council meeting. This motion proposes to 1. Create the position of a Disability Access Officer whose responsibility will be to coordinate and oversee accessibility initiatives within the city, ensuring that people with disabilities have a dedicated advocate within the council. And 2. Establish a Disability and Inclusion Committee, similar to Wicklow County Council's Disability Inclusion Steering Committee, to ensure that disabled people are actively involved in shaping policies and decision-making processes.
Credits roll. Participants: Arun Asin, Stephen Curran, Gina McNamara. Councillors: Frank Fahy, Helen Ogbu, Mike Cupboard, Marion Maloney. Interviewer: Rose Foley. ISL interpreter: Tony Dolan.